Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Matt, and today we're going to do something a little different. I'm here with my good friends and fellow Michiganders, Jason and Brian from the YouTube channel Michigan Brews. I'm going to have them have a link to their channel down in the description. Today, we're going to go and really just have more of an open discussion and break down top tips for people considering or that are just submitting their beer into homebrewing competitions. I'm going to hand the mic over to Jason and Brian for intros in just a second, but first, if you're new to the channel, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I also want to take a second and thank my channel members. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. Okay, Jason and Brian, why don't you guys do a quick overview of your channel and then go into some quick intros?
So my name is Brian Stevens. I'm part of Keepers of Craft in Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's our homebrew club. Michigan Brews is I would say we're very homebrew focused, and we're more maybe like a educational slash entertainment sort of live stream. We live stream a couple nights a week at 7:30 Eastern time on Mondays, and we go over various topics relating to homebrew, things, different styles, homebrew competitions, like we're doing right now, and various things that come up in the homebrew community. We've talked to a lot of famous beer people in the world, like Lance Shaner from Omega Yeast.
So why don't you guys go into quick little intros? So, how long have you guys been making beer and what's your experience with homebrewing competitions?
Yeah, I've been brewing for almost, I think, 9 years now, getting close to 9 years. Very first beer I ever brewed, I entered into a competition and it actually took a medal. And ever since then, it just kind of lit a fire. And I've been chasing more and more and more and more medals. But yeah, we're both also involved in the Michigan Beer Cup competition. We've recently joined that team as organizers this year. Really looking forward to what we're going to do with that competition next year.
I've been brewing 8 years, so 1 year less than Jason, and I actually got into brewing because of competitions. The Bell's Homebrew competition. So the Bell's Homebrew competition, the way that it used to work is you would go there on wort pickup day, and they would give you 5 gallons of wort that they made, and you would take it home and just make a beer out of it, and then you send it back in and get a little bit of feedback on it, and it's a competition. But I got hooked. So fast forward now to this year. I think I have 4 NHC medals as of right now. This year I'm going to be somewhere around 30, 35 medals in competitions all over, the US and stuff like that. I took a gold in Mazer Cup for the first time this year. Entering competitions has made me a better brewer, and it's made me interested in judging beer. And judging beer, I think, makes me a better brewer because I'm able to taste all of the amazing and sometimes not so amazing beer that other people are making.
Cool. Well, thanks for the intro, guys. And if I haven't said so already, make sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel. These guys put out content pretty regularly, so make sure to give them a sub for me. I'd really appreciate it. But anyway, guys, why don't we go ahead and just jump into the topic? So homebrewing competitions. I'm going to pass it to yourself, Brian and Jason. So
What we like to start off with is why you should enter a competition in the first place. Competitions are really they're about two things, right? They're about winning medals. I mean, that's what competitions are, right? Inherently, they're about like winning medals, right? But more importantly, when it comes to beer, especially if you're a new brewer, it's about the feedback. The BJCP exists solely to train judges on how to provide great feedback to brewers that enter these homebrew competitions, and that feedback, if you take it and really put it into perspective and trust it, can be used to really enhance who you are as a home brewer and help you put out better beer in the future.
Yeah, it is that unbiased feedback. When you're a home brewer, if you're lucky enough or you're eager enough to go out and join a homebrew club, it's kind of difficult to go and be face to face, with your friend or your buddy or somebody that you just met at a homebrew club and give them that hard feedback on what flaws you might be picking up or what defects are in the beer. You want to encourage them, and it's easier to say, oh, that beer is really good, or yeah, I like it, and they can't really do anything with that to learn and grow. I know Brian and I and at the club we are trying to foster that open, honest, constructive criticism. But it is a difficult thing to do. You're going to get that feedback from a judge. that is not looking at you in the face, doesn't know you, doesn't know your beer, and they're going to tell you the truth. You know, what they taste, what they don't taste, what you could do better. Hopefully, they're going to give you some nuggets that you can take away and improve your beer and make a better beer. You know, I tell a story in the presentation Brian and I do where I brewed a beer and it scored a 19. You know, which is in a lot of competitions that's a courtesy score. Like we don't go below 19. But they gave me feedback. You know, they told me things about changing the grain bill and reducing some of the astringency from the dark malts. It was a stout, and I took that and I iterated on it, and I got more feedback, and then I got a higher score, and then I got, you know, that feedback, and I rebrewed it again, and I got a higher score and more feedback, and that beer went from being a 19 to, you know, mid 40s every time, and winning, you know, probably a dozen medals and awards at this point.
Maybe we talk about tips. You know, if you end up making a like red IPA or something, that's what you wanted to make, but maybe you used old hops or you didn't use enough hops, and it sort of comes out to be this nice, like more malty, well-balanced amber ale. Maybe it's an American amber ale in the competition now. You know, you don't necessarily have to enter what your recipe was, and that's a big thing. Judging competitions, you end up getting a lot of beers that, you know, just are sometimes all over the place, and you kind of wonder, you know, what happened or what the homebrewer was thinking. And it's hard to give feedback if the beer doesn't necessarily meet the style that you're judging.
You find that recipe and you think this is the beer I'm brewing, and that's the category I've got to enter it in, but it's not at all true. You know, I entered that. You know, I brewed a stout. Entered it into a category that, you know, it should have gone in. And I get that feedback that was like, you know, this is not that beer at all. If you would have entered it in this category, it would have gone 10 points higher. And that's just, it's disappointing. But I know a lot of people think about that. Like, I brewed an Irish stout. It's an Irish stout. Well, maybe your you know, your numbers were off, your fermentation, you know, did something weird, or you got a little bit of sweetness in the beer or a little bit more complexity, and it was really more of like a foreign extra or something. You can't get tied to the recipe that you set out to brew. You actually are entering the beer that's in your glass.
And one thing to add too is, you know, tasting, like you guys said, is really important, and not only yourself tasting it, but also friends. If you have friends that are homebrewers or people that enter competitions, have them try it. I know Brian and Jason, you actually tried one of my beers because I forgot the style I was aiming for, but you guys said, you know what, even though you made this, you should enter it in as a pale ale.
You know, maybe even go in it blind and just say, hey, what do you think this is? You know, and they can tell you. But that's a critical part. And to kind of go along with that, if you're just unsure, if it is close between styles, the best example I have is Brian inspired me in January to brew my first Czech dark lager. Ooh. And after I brewed it, we weren't really sure if it was a Czech dark lager or a Schwarzbier. And I entered it in as a Schwarzbier and as a Czech dark lager, and kind of see, you know, how the feedback comes. And some competitions actually allow you, or don't specifically tell you, that you cannot enter the same beer as two different beers. The end result on that was it scored much better as a Czech dark lager. And it went on to take a gold.
Kelsey McNair, back when he was a home brewer, was probably, I think he might be the most meddlingest brewer in like the IPA categories back in, you know, the last 10 years of NHC or something like that. He mentions a few times that there was at least, I think a couple of years that he entered the same beer into like pale ale, American IPA, and double IPA, and medaled at nationals with, you know, that same beer. I think sometimes beers, you know, can kind of split the range, right? So
judging is very subjective. And what is put in front of that judge, the judges are already kind of preordained to kind of think about, you know, I am trying to taste a pale ale, so they're going to kind of hone in on a pale ale, and they're going to pick that apart if it's different. But they are given very limited amounts of information. And so a big point that we do tell people is, if you don't want the judges to consider it specifically, don't mention it. My Irish stout is actually a coffee beer. It's actually got coffee in it. It's one of the ingredients. but I'm not calling it out as a coffee beer. Coffee is a nuance. It's a background flavor which is acceptable for that category. But I don't put that on my scorecard or on my entry card, because then if you tell the judges, they're going to pick it out, or they're going to pick it apart. Or if you say it's got cherries and it doesn't have cherries, they're going to ding you. You always want to make sure that you're disclosing ingredients, that could cause allergies. If you're doing a peanut beer, God, please say that you have a peanut beer.
Right.
I would hate to be a competition organizer and have something go wrong like that. But for the general beer itself, you don't have to get too super detailed.
You're definitely opening yourself up to a lot of criticism. And also, if let's say the person trying your beer, the judge, may not want to use a certain type of hop variety in a certain style. And let's say maybe you put that hop variety, he's going to already not like the beer before even trying it, because he now knows you used a hop variety that he wouldn't use in that style. So
what other tips do you think are good, Brian? I mean, we've talked about flavors and brewing the beer that you brewed.
Another important thing maybe is to focus on the feedback that you get back from the score sheets, and not necessarily like how you do. When I first started entering homebrew competitions, I don't really think that I won a lot of medals, right? I won, I think my very first medal was Michigan Beer Cup, but that wasn't my first competition. And sometimes, especially if you're very competitive, which I didn't used to be until I really kind of got into this hobby, but it can be disheartening to enter something and not win. But you have to understand what the competition is like out there. Like most moderate sized competitions, you're competing against in average categories, maybe like 15 other beers. If you're doing like hazy IPA, it's probably double or triple that, these days. And just take that with a grain of salt and use that to kick yourself in the butt and be like, all right, what does this sheet say I didn't do or need to do, and how do I do that next time?
There's almost always a nugget in there. I mean, look, you're going to run across score sheets that are going to have good beer. And unfortunately, there are some judges out there that's all the time and effort they put into it. The majority of them, I can find something, even if it's, with that, going back to the coffee stout we talked about earlier, having them talk about, hey, there's too much malt bitterness here, and I actually took that and went back to the club. Somebody said, well, have you tried dehusked, Carafa grain instead of black patent? It's got less astringency. It's a less bitter malt. So, I took that, that one little line greatly improved the beer. So there's always some little note that you can pick out of that and take that 19-point beer and make it a 45-point beer. You're talking about an entry fee that's anywhere from $10 to $15, $20, so it's worth it, in my opinion. I mean, you're putting, sometimes we put hundreds of dollars into making these beers. For another $10, you get feedback on it. So I'm very much a enter it often and enter it everywhere kind of guy, and that's kind of the encouragement I give. But another thing you should focus on: make your beer stand out. If you're cranking out that beer, or you want to enter this category, it's not a problem, or it shouldn't be something you should avoid, to use a little bit of extra, a little extra flavoring, a little extra fruit, a little extra hop. And the reason for that is most competitions are judged, in fact, all competitions, I should say, are judged in flight styles, where that judge is going to be tasting 3, 4, 7, maybe even 10 beers in that lineup, and yeah, you might be lucky enough to get the first slot, but you're most likely going to land in the middle of the pack somewhere in there. And so I really like to tell people, like, the one of the first books I read was Extreme Brewing, where they talked about kind of going big with your flavors. And that's kind of where this came out for me, is make that flavor prominent, make that hop prominent. Give your beer a little something extra, because in a competition, you're going to be battling palate fatigue with the judges. And when they have to sit there and pick out the best beer of the lineup, it might help to have that one that was just had a little extra pop.
One of the best ways, honestly, to learn how to make good beer is to learn how to taste beer. And the best place to taste beer is at a homebrew competition. You don't have to be a judge. Go and steward.
Go and steward.
Stewarding is super fun, and you get to taste more beer than the judges do. Stewarding is basically grabbing beer out of the cooler, bringing it to judges, making sure judges have like water, crackers, like just kind of hanging out, talking to people, and maybe, you know, just helping the competition go smoothly. They're the most important part of the competition. Stewards are more important than judges, honestly. And they get to taste all the beer. Essentially, that's not going to like a best of show or a mini best of show. Any open bottle that's not going anywhere else, free game. It's either you drink it or it gets dumped.
It's great too as a steward. You to walk away from the table and you have the score sheets in your hand in that beer. And that, for me, in the times that I've gotten to do it, it's been like, oh my God, this beer got, you know, like a 19 maybe. Like I want to taste it and see, and you can taste and read their notes and be like, oh yeah, I get that, you know. And it's kind of cool. It's an opportunity to get that real time kind of sensory feedback and understand why the judges are saying this or that. And then just even asking the judges, like, why did you pick this out? Or how did you compare this with each other? Listening to the judges talk to each other. It's really awesome.
There may be some people that don't have the access to steward, or maybe they don't have the time for it. And I will tell you this, that there are resources on the BJCP website. So if you look at a style like American IPA or Kolsch or whatever, at the bottom of the page, there's actually what they consider good commercial examples of the style. So it's a good idea to, you know, maybe compare your beer to a commercial example and see maybe what you're lacking, what, you know, maybe you added too much, whatever, you know. But if you don't have access to these competitions, it's a good way to get quick comparisons.
100%.
You know what the best way to get comparison data and get feedback and to figure out how your beer is doing and how you're doing as a brewer, is to join a homebrew club.
Sure.
Join a homebrew club, go hang out with a bunch of other beer geeks, bring your homebrew, pass it around. And like I know I said earlier, it's hard to say good things to your face, but you're still going to get that encouragement. You're still going to get that, at least some information back from these people, or you'll be able to have those conversations. 2 years ago, the guy that took the lowest possible score in our club competition won the competition the next year.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that comes from, being able to share his beers with fellow members, get that feedback, get that encouragement, and take that information back to, just try new things and try to be better.
But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to check out Brian and Jason on Michigan Brews. They stream every week. These guys are awesome. So make sure to give them a subscribe for me. But anyway, guys, is there anything you guys want to say before we end the video?
No, man, it's been great. Thanks for having us on.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on.
We also have a podcast. We all of our live streams we turn into podcast episodes too. So if you don't want to watch the live stream and you just want some entertainment on the drive to work, you can subscribe to our podcast too.
But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Right on. Cheers.